Recently, there was a group that got together, organized by the federal government, the Department of Education. They were called the National Commission on Excellence in Education. They spent 18 months going across the country, talking to teachers and students, reviewing curriculum, trying to ask and answer the question, how are the schools in America doing? How are we doing in educating our young? Let's make an assessment and see how we're doing. 18 months goes by, tons of public meetings all across the country, and in the end they produce a report. And in the report they say, among other things, that America's educational institutions are being submerged by a rising tide of mediocrity that threatens to overwhelm these institutions. And that further, if a foreign, unfriendly power, a government, had attempted to impose on America the very mediocre educational performance that now exists today, we might well have viewed it as an act of war. As it stands, they said, we've done this to ourselves. Now, I fibbed a little bit. This group did not recently do this. This was under the Reagan administration in 1983. Their report was called A Nation at Risk. The 40th anniversary is April 26th of this coming year. I'm working on a book called Mediocrity, 40 Ways That Government Schools Are Failing Our Kids, that we're going to publish on the exact day of the 40th anniversary to highlight just how bad things are. 40 years ago, we had a rising tide of mediocrity that threatened America's very institutions. Raise of hands in the audience. Anyone here think that the education performance of American schools have improved in the last 40 years? Bueller? Okay, no hands. No one brave enough to venture that opinion. This is what we're up against. The intentional dumbing down of American society. I would invite you, when you go home or later on your phones, Google, 8th grade test in the 1800s. There's a variety of them you can find online. I did this the other day for this mediocrity book that I was working on, so I was doing some research into it. And you remember that TV show? I don't know if it's still on. Are you smarter than a 5th grader? And they would have like an adult come and challenge a 5th grader based on 5th grade textbook questions. Well, are you smarter than an 8th grader? Not today with our massively dumbed down curriculum, but an 8th grader from a century and a half ago. I think all of us in this room, intellectual or otherwise, would struggle with the elevated quality of education that we used to have in America and versus the degraded quality that we have today. Put on my tinfoil hat for just a moment. I think this is intentional. If you're familiar with John Taylor Gatto, and if you're not, you got some homework to do. John Taylor Gatto, G-A-T-T-O. He was a 30-year public school teacher in New York. He was awarded New York City Teacher of the Year and then New York State Teacher of the Year by the establishment who gives out such awards. And in the very year that he got the New York State Teacher of the Year, he wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal titled, "I Quit, I Think," in which he goes on to say that in his profession, try as though he did within the system to reform it. Try within his classroom to help kids and inspire kids and cultivate their curiosity. He says in the op-ed, I'm working within a system that hurts them more than it helps them. If anyone knows of a job where I can help kids without also hurting them, please let me know. And he quit. He went on to write many books, one of which is called Dumbing Us Down, The Hidden Curriculum of Compulsory Schooling. I read that book when I was engaged to my now wife, and it hit me upside the head because I realized this is intentional. There are people who architected the modern school system in exactly this way, to fashion people into a subordinate collective who are willing to follow orders and do what they're told and be part of the group rather than stand independently and think critically. Because people in power don't want critical thinkers. They don't want entrepreneurs. They don't want rugged individualists, because they can only enact control over a society full of sheep.